You stand in an alleyway with no other way but forward. Your legs tremble at the sight of a creature you swore never existed until now, and yet your eyes does not perceive your mind, as you are fully aware that what you're encountering is nothing like what you have ever witnessed before. A devil. Of course, there were always rumors that support the fact that they exist, although rarely do people ever believe in it because most that do are either dead or just suffering from PTSD. But what you know that is true is an organization whose actions are to perpetuate said devils, and it just so happens that you are a part of it. Yep, turns out that you had a rather unlucky encounter as a devil hunter, and on your first mission nonetheless. Your colleagues were already butchered with pools of blood soaking behind the monster's feet, and worse than that, you have no weapons, and no idea how to get out of this mess. You must feel pathetic, already reminiscing what your past actions could have been if you didn't choose to sign up. But really, who can blame you? You were just trying to feed your poor family, and that led you being trapped in a sad, lonely corner, ready to be served up as a full-course meal. There's really no getting out of this. You are about to die. And that really sucks, doesn't it? But suddenly, you hear a strange noise lurking from behind the wall. It took at least 5 seconds to realize what that sound was. It sounded like something was revving, but it couldn't have been a vehicle, could it? No, that's the sound of someone using a chainsaw. Of course, it would be nice if you had one with you right now, otherwise you would have easily dealt with the devil already. But something about the revving chainsaw feels different. Just as the devil approaches you, the noise slowly gets louder and louder, making you question as to where it's coming from, and why. Maybe it's another task force to save you, or perhaps it's another breed of devil ready to dig in on your nice, cold flesh. All these questions in your head soon goes abrupt as you now see a strange figure jumping out from the wall behind you. And what does that figure resemble? Well, you already know the answer to that, don't you? Now then, what exactly is this show? Oh boy, where do I even begin? Usually it'd be a given to tell you what this series is all about, but considering how it got insurmountable amounts of attention even before its release, I wanted to figure that most of you who are watching this is already a fan of the show in this regard, or at least just interested in it, for that matter. In just its few pair of episodes, Chainsaw Man has already become one of the most highlighted anime to arrive in recent memory. And to be fair, it ain't really that surprising due to the staggering reputation that's been garnered from its manga counterpart. Like, let me ask you this. Have you ever witnessed proper hype whenever there's a new anime coming out? Well, the short answer is no, unless you happen to read manga. I mean, sure, there were definitely some shows that started up some form of hype train. Just take a look at the Shonen Jump catalog. And oh, what do you know? Chainsaw Man is part of that as well. By all means, I have never heard about an anime adaptation getting this much in, well, ever. Already did we have so many major players in the anime community talk about it before it even laid the groundwork. Already did we have a fan base that grew further than several others thanks to its sheer scale alone, that it might as well trench up an army of Makima Sims to overtake Area 51. Yeah, I see you there holding a portrait of her in your hands, don't pretend you're not. Popularity aside, Chainsaw Man has even garnered a reputation that's so well praised within the industry that it had definitive big plays in from the team working behind it. Like, they got Kensuke Ushu on the soundtrack. That's how you know things are gonna go down hard. And the best thing about it is that so far during its runtime, the adaptation itself does not disappoint. This is movie quality-esque animation you're seeing right now on your screen. And that's also coming to grips with how well it's standing out, even compared to the other big shows that are airing this season. Which, unsurprisingly with its status alone, it has made quite an astounding impact with just how brilliant and layered out both in its narrative and action set pieces that have been presented throughout the world Tatsuki Fujimoto had envisioned. And to all of that going on, it begins to beg this big question that's lurking from within our minds. Just how the hell did he pull it off? Well, that's an answer I'm about to present to you all today. So buckle up and grab your dog belts, trust me you're gonna need them, because now we're going to look into the world that shackled people's expectations of what anime could be. And that name is Chainsaw Man.
some milk!
From the word go, you already start to see what Fujimoto has planned to show you what he has in store. While the setting itself is pretty much initially like our own, underneath lies a cruel, desolate place that's overridden by supernatural creatures, known of course as devils. But not just any type of devil, because what makes it stand apart from your typical Lucifer stand is that they take the forms of many kinds of natural fears that we as human beings tend to abide by. Yet despite its otherwise grim tone, Chainsaw Man still takes the time to invest in our main group of characters that balances with their odd but mostly on times hilarious occupations as the bona fide shitposting chaotic group of self-individualized devil hunters that see through the lenses of the world way differently than your average hillbilly. And as the frontbringer to that kind of attitude, we definitely very much need to talk about Denji, because unlike most shonen characters that have a long-term goal in mind that they aspire to fulfill through hard work and determination, such as becoming the Hokage or turning your sister back into a normal human being, Denji only tends to have a few goals in life that are rather simple. Some might say it'd be barely meet the status quo of being a normal member of society. But of course, one might say that the only fulfilling thing to do in life is to fill some breasts. Now, usually that's not what you'd see in your typical shonen-esque main character, but when you look at it from Denji's perspective, it kinda makes sense. Because throughout his lifetime, before even the story began, Denji had nothing. No parents to be looked after by, no shelter to provide warmth, definitely no food to eat either, and to make matters worse is that he had to work off with an absurdly large amount of debt left by his father for the Yakuza, where the only thing that keeps him going is his pet devil dog Pochita. And for a while, you really do start to sympathize with just how sorrowful their lives must have been. That is, until one day, both of them end up getting butchered by the same Yakuza that made a contract with the devil that turns people undead. Well, that's a surefire way to cap off their fate. Or so you think! Cause right after said squish kebab, Pochita ends up sacrificing himself, in which not only brings Denji back to life, but also... Yeah, you already know how it's gonna go down. Even despite that, this is without a doubt one of the most messed up origin prologues you can give to a main character, especially when it's demographically aimed at young boys. And yet despite how batshit his goals might be, you could say he's the perfect catalyst for a story that's just about as batshit as you can get. Because what sets Chainsaw Man apart from its other shonen counterparts is that it really does encapsulate the mood and tone that aligns perfectly with Denji's character as a result. Straightforward in nature, yet downright unsettling beneath the surface. While this is still technically Denji's story, there are a plentiful amount of characters that might as well fill in the same role. Take Aki, for example, a man whose whole family has been taken away from a tragic accident that not only impacts his whole arc in turn, but even the events of the whole world that took place before the story even began. Or perhaps even Himeno, whose experience as a veteran hunter ended up causing her so much loss where she ends up relying on more than one coping mechanism. My point is that each of these characters have, in some way, shape, or form, been broken down by the world, and how their place in it affects them both mentally, as well as how they'd react to otherwise mundane circumstances. Because rarely in an anime do you ever get an insight to what the characters usually think, and what they have to say about what their tragic upbringing is. Normally, you'd have a character that goes about the lines of someone like, "My entire family is murdered by a man that I've been entitled to soar revenge by. My whole life is nothing but shambles and regret, and I will continue to lead down that path until the day I die." Well, there's definitely people like that in Chainsaw Man. They usually just don't go all up and shoving it in your face like any other edgy guy would. Instead, thanks to both the manga and anime subtle direction by how they react to things and what they so often express most of the time without relying on any source of dialogue, it's easy to tell that these characters in particular has been through some shit.
悪魔が恐れるデビルハンターはな、頭のネジがぶっ飛んでるやつだ。素直でまっすぐ単純。だから悪魔の奴らもどうすりゃ怖がるか分かっちまう。だがネジがぶっ飛んでるやつは何を考えてるか分からない。悪魔も理解できんもんは怖がるもんだ。
Okay, is there anyone else I'm forgetting?
What about Makima?
Nah, that's too complicated. Oh, right, I got it. And then you have Power. Alright, first off, from the moment you see her, you instantly know that she is not like most girls. In fact, you could say that she has the most outgoing personality in the series, and when you compare that to the rest of the other big anime that's currently airing, her character is simply being shot by a large mile. Instant she sees vegetable, she's like, She sees someone on the verge of a mental breakdown, she laughs it off like a maniac. She declares that she will win her first ever Nobel Prize, yet despite not knowing what her IQ really is. And finally, but not the very least, she got them horns. This woman is the embodiment of the sheer utter chaos that thrives in Chainsaw Man, and I fucking love her.
But you didn't mention fucking Makima!
Alright, fine, I wasn't initially gonna talk about her, but... Huh? Am I hearing... Is it just me, or is there suddenly an awful lot of barking throughout the projector? Okay, where do I start with her? Well, aside from how her character's ability to turn the community into, well, you heard the noises from earlier, didn't you? As well as, other awakenings, Makima as a whole tends to be served as this role of a figure that not only influences Denji with her assets, but she's pretty much the core that turns our main trio, Denji, Pao, and Aki, into the self-banter yet oddly familial bonding dynamic that we see throughout this series' progressions. Yet the further you go into it, the more you begin to realize just how much this mysterious character has a lot going on than simply meets the eye. Well, she initially starts off as the enabler to help Denji get in what he wants in life, such as feeding her. God damn it, I'm preaching again! What is supposedly Makima's role in the series is that she is, by all accounts, responsible for looking after her fellow devil hunters, and taking charge is reprimanded for how she tells people what to do. However, in the way she treats other people, especially when compared to our main boy, Makima, for some reason or another, tends to have this unnerving trait that, when you combine that with her manipulative persona, it makes you wonder just what the hell she wants from her protagonist, or the more important factor being, who exactly is she? Just to clarify, the characters do acknowledge just how assertive she's being to Denji, and let's not get into how she somewhat has the overpowered ability to, big spoiler warning by the way, literally flatten people into a pancake till their flesh explodes upon impact. And to that end, Makima as a whole not only represents as the monarchy to being Denji's one and only purpose to strive towards, but as the monarchy for presenting just how chaotic the world really is. Now, what's interesting about Chainsaw Man in particular is that when you compare its power system and world building to what the other previous shows have established in its category, it pretty much feels like night and day when you look at it trope-wise. For example, you got One Piece with the devil fruits that turn people into whatever kind of fruit is presented. For Demon Slayer, it's breathing techniques that suits the user's way of fighting. In JoJo, you have spirit manifestations of, well, basically anything, really. Whereas Chainsaw Man's power system is relatively simple and easy to understand, but once you delve further into what they provide, you then realize just how dangerous they can get, to not only supposed opponent, but to the user themselves. Just how as risky it can be to hunt down a devil, it can also be just as risky to use when you're contracted with. Sure, there are some who are harmless as long as you know what you're doing, but all in all, everything comes at a price. Even if it's just a short-held breath of escaping imminent death. And that is one of the big reasons as to why Chainsaw Man has become one of the most prominent anime to ever come out in a while. Cause personally speaking, while it is easy to make a series in which its world revolves around its characters dying all the time, it just makes it hard in the process to watch as you're going along by wondering, ooh, I wonder who's going to die next, which, yeah, a lot of people do die in the show, and I mean a lot of people. Yet despite that, there's a whole lot more going on than just how its plot beats and narrative tend to go hand in hand, cause remember what I said that this is mainly Denji's story? Well, that pretty much is credited to every single supporting character in this show, and that really goes to remark just how well crafted Tatsuki Fujimoto has done to make this the juggernaut we all know today. Even before Chainsaw Man, Fujimoto has already been credited as a fantastic mangaka due to his previous work Fire Punch, by which it carries a lot of similarities with Chainsaw Man, albeit being a whole lot more ridiculous. Yet the method and technicalities that Fujimoto uses to write and illustrate his stories is a form of expression that I have rarely encountered before, anime or otherwise. One fun fact that you should know about this guy is that he is a huge fanatic when it comes to movies. Like, come on, if you haven't recognized at least one movie reference from the opening's first 30 seconds alone, then I'd like you to remark your Makima Sim badge and leave the premises immediately. And I think it serves as a clear detriment to what Fujimoto has done for the past recent years. Because whatever he creates, he does so in a style in which we'd easily tell who's making it, like how an actual filmmaker would do. Whether it be in a style that's experimental or just so emotionally compelling that you might as well grab a couple of tissues while you're reading/watching his stuff. I cannot express myself as to how much I love his works, and this series in particular. From its wild and gritty as hell action to its lovable yet broken cast of characters, there's always something that makes me want to come back and immerse myself in this series all over again. even if it puts me into a stage of clinical depression for the next 2 or 3 days. In conclusion, what do you all think of Chainsaw Man? Please, let me know down in the comments and tell me your opinion about what it means to you personally. Because now, I think it's time to wrap this video up, and if you've watched it to the end, then I'm very grateful for your attention. In this case, my name is Migs, and I hope to see you all next time.